there's not going to be a bad seat in that ballpark.
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, you've got the intimacy of that ballpark for games that count now, not games that we will watch during spring training. Has a kind of a hyper, intensity level, and there's going to be one thing that I think it's going to be. This is going to be where the fans of Hillsborough County may rebel against the city and the county, because they're going to have a chance to do something that never had happened before. They're going to see Major League Baseball across the street from the football stadium in a place where it's supposed to be the baseball stadium that they were supposed to build. And we're talking about the first time, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're a Tampa fan, if you live in Tampa and you go over and you get to that game, you're going to go and go, I could have had this.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we will continue our in-depth conversation with Jim Williams, who, if you don't know, is a 7-time Emmy Award winner, and he's also received 29 different nominations. Good stuff on this episode, Ulises.
We have a really good interview, so you guys enjoyed. I know you have enjoyed the first part, so this is the second part where a lot of other juicy stuff behind the scenes get talked about. But first, before we get to the second part, I got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel and with the Bucks, because FanDuel just bet $5 and you get $200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose, people. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The race just 24 hours ago, Kevin, they kind of reversed their kind of opinion on the Trop being fixed. They're like, you know what? If you want to do that, yeah, let's do that for opening day 2026. But I want to come back to something you said regarding the TV deal. I know stadium deal leases usually are for 30 years. That's just like the standard, right?
Right.
Do we know this $60 million a year TV deal with the Rays, the length of this TV deal? Do TV deals usually have a 5 to 10 year length? Like, how does that work?
I don't think it would be less than 7.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, because remember, it's a renegotiation on a long-term deal. The original deal, I think, was for 10 to 12 years. So I'm guessing at least 7. I mean, there's no reason to renegotiate a 3-year deal.
Right. So it would be through definitely the opening of a new stadium, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because okay. you would want as a partner, a regional partner, right? If you're building a new stadium, okay, if I were doing it now, I would want to be able to build a control room in the stadium, so I wouldn't have to bring a truck in all the time.
Right.
I would want to know. I would want the ability to run cables so that I can have my cameras already put up in a way that would be not intrusive in any way to the ballpark, but at the same time be state of the art. I would like to be able to if Amazon rolls in, or if Apple rolls in, or whomever is not who's a streaming partner, that they could just flick a switch and take my game without any problem. So I have a stake as a producer, as a regional sports network, to want to have input in how that works. The same thing, to give you a situation, the same thing when they built Camden Yards, Home Team Sports, which is a regional partner at the time for the Orioles, that was the first thing they did, is they went in and said, look, here's where we're going to put cameras. Here's where we're going to. So they laid when they built that stadium, they built it for television ready. It was television ready on day one.
That's awesome. And
so I would think that following suit, especially if you're in a dome, you would want to be able to do that. And at the same time, you would build some control rooms in there, as well as some areas where, like right now, if you go, fans can do this. You can go to the San Francisco 49ers OTT site, right? The moment the game is over, they go to a studio, which is literally in the building in Levi Stadium. Okay. So broadcasters and, as partners and stadiums, when they're building a new one, there's input there. And there should be from the team. The team should want that input because it benefits them. The moment that, that the Rays step off the field, you can have a post-game show where you can literally have one of the guys in the building in your studio the moment the game's over.
Yeah.
Jim, I want to circle back to the Rays playing in Steinbrenner Field, but you touched on multiple interesting things, but one that stuck out to me in the discussion about the unlikelihood of relocation and then possible expansion by Major League Baseball, because my understanding is they want to eventually get to 32 teams, so the owners can cash in on that big payday related to that. But you mentioned that it's going to be difficult or quite the uphill battle for MLB to expand or relocate to Nashville, which has been mentioned so much over the airwaves, Charlotte, and Raleigh. So if those three communities are off the table, so to speak, what do you see as the next two cities that are prime ready for expansion for an American League and or National League team?
Salt Lake City and Austin.
Ooh, I thought you were going to go for Portland. Okay.
Portland is one of those outliers that they always get mentioned. And God loves Portland. I mean, it's a beautiful city. I have nothing against them. I want to go to Portland someday again. So I'm going to be as kind as I possibly can be. They've been one of those teams. One of those cities that just keeps floating around out there. There's no money there yet. There's no stadium situation. It's a great place for an NBA franchise. It's a great place for an MLS franchise. It's a great city. If you're out there in the Northwest and have a moment, go to Portland. I'll be part of the Chamber of Commerce on that standpoint. But you go where the money is, and the money is. I don't know if you guys read it, but there's an ownership group that owns the Utah Jazz. They're going to build. They've got $900 million for a new stadium. They've got $900 million for a new arena entertainment center out there. So the money in Salt Lake City is there. There's a group in Austin, Texas that is there. I think Major League Baseball would love to put an American League team in the Mountain Time Zone, because that would give them 4 time zones they could deal with. So I think that Colorado, of course, being in the National League, if they could get Salt Lake into the American League, I think that probably would be a win for them.
And you kind of help out the Seattle Mariners there, because I mean, first of all, they have no rivalry, and also the flights. I mean, just give me like 1 3-4 hour flight. Like, I don't know the distance between Seattle and Salt Lake, but it's definitely less than whatever else they have to go right now.
Well, I've made the flight from Tampa, St. Petersburg to Seattle, and I've made the flight from Miami just to Seattle, and I've actually made the flight from Tampa to London, and it's shorter. So
that's insane.
It's crazy. I mean, it's a long trip, and I feel bad because my one of my best friends, Dave Sims, who now got the job back as the Yankees announcer, spent 18 years as the Mariners announcer, I mean, their baseball might look, and there's some back channel chatter about Vancouver.
Go back to okay.
Because Vancouver has a phenomenal sport. It's a phenomenal sports town, and if you ever have a chance to go, Vancouver's just a gorgeous place to visit. I do think that Vancouver and they've got now a rivalry in hockey between Seattle and Vancouver, which is a great thing. Vancouver's huge. You go everywhere in Vancouver, you see guys wearing Seattle Mariners hats. You see them wearing Seattle Seahawks jerseys. So it really is a town where potentially that might be a place to go.
I
On the
think
east, go ahead.
fan base wise, I think that would be such a cool experiment, if I may, because it, like you're saying, in Vancouver, there's people with a Seattle Mariners hat and all that.
Right.
Imagine if they've had this fondness for the Seattle Mariners,
Right.
and all of a sudden, boom. No, you have your own team. It's
Mhm.
probably what in 1998 it felt like somebody that was I don't want to say Yankee fan, but let's go,
Braves fan.
Tigers, Braves fan, something like that. And they're like, oh wait, now we have our own team. I can be a Devil Race. That must be such a crazy dynamic for a baseball fan.
Well, it's I can speak from experience of having a large portion of my family who live in this area who were Orioles fans, and then had the Rays. I mean, had the Nationals dropped into the mix, and you can go to the Nationals games a whole lot easier than going to Camden Yard. So you're going there, and so you've got families who wear. You've got split allegiances. Mom is from the Baltimore area or was an Orioles fan, and dad is a Nationals fan. So it makes for a very difficult circumstance whenever they play each other.
Kevin was 17 years old, just like I was during the 2008 run, and the World Series was against the Phillies. Well, you fast forward a little bit, and Kevin has gotten married, and there's a Philly fan that he's living with right now. Yeah. So, if that was 2008, October might have been a little bit difficult, but you never know. Yeah.
House divided.
There's nothing like a house divided. It's funny too, because I have a nephew who's 8 years old, and he's a Lamar Jackson fan because his mother is a Baltimore fan. By the way, she's a baseball fan. Their dog is named Camden. Her husband grew up not only did he grow up as a Washington everything fan, he literally lives in the same neighborhood as the Lerner family. So he's got him going to the Capitals because in hockey there's no Orioles. There's no Baltimore hockey team, so that works out. But he's got a Lamar Jackson jersey and a Jaden Daniels jersey. So I don't. The poor kid's I don't know what he's gonna do by the time he gets old enough to really become fans. But at the end of the day, it's cool to have that. It's cool to have that kind of loyalty.
And I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. We just love it. And now Game Time has made it even easier to get your tickets to your favorite events with this new feature they have called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So guess what? That makes it easier for you to take the guesswork out of buying tickets using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Kevin, what time is it?
It is Game Time.
And just talking about cool to have that, I guess it's also cool to have the Rays being in Tampa, at least for 1 year. You mentioned you have a house in Lutz, so you're from Lutz. Can you talk to us about how that can impact the fan just being closer to the action, like literally, because it's a smaller ballpark, closer to the players? The media must be a little bit tighter. Like, can you talk about like how you think this year's going to go for not only the fans, but that media relations between players and fans?
Kevin and I chatted about this. It's one of the things I mentioned to him that would geek me out as a fan, would be the fact that I can go and get a seat that under normal circumstances in any other ballpark in the country is going to cost me, $300 or $400. There's not going to be a bad seat in that ballpark.
No.
Okay, you've got the intimacy of that ballpark for games that count now, not games that we will watch during spring training. Has a kind of a hyper, intensity level. And there's going to be one thing that I think that's going to be. This is going to be where the fans of Hillsborough County may rebel against against the city and the county, because they're going to have a chance to do something that never has happened before. They're going to see Major League Baseball across the street from the football stadium in a place where it's supposed to be the baseball stadium that they were supposed to build. And we're talking about the first time. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a Tampa fan, if you live in Tampa and you go over and you get to that game, you're going to go and go, I could have had this. What the hell happened with my elected officials?
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, the state of Florida, how many billions, if you added up, how many billions of dollars has the state of Florida invested in minor league baseball for spring training?
Wow.
I mean, I got a kick out of them going, look, you mentioned the Phillies. The Phillies asked for a $300 million facelift of a minor league baseball park, and they're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
what?
What was Venice when they built that ballpark down in Venice, $150 million. Nobody batted an eyelash for the Braves.
And before the whole COVID thing, the Blue Jays got renovation, kind of like timely, because of what ended up happening. For what was it, Kevin? $100 million?
It was.
I think so, or
yeah.
around there. There were a lot of lighting upgrades that had to be made and accommodations for players.
Right. The real thing, and I got Kevin, and you brought up a good point. The reason the Blue Jays got to play COVID wise in at their ballpark was because it was COVID and there was these extreme circumstances, and that's why they got there. Right now, I would be concerned about, can you get the dome fixed by 2026?
Right.
Another question, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but where do you see this franchise ownership going in the next couple years, decade plus? We have one elected official that we had on the program, Chris Latvala.
Right.
He said it on our show. He's been harping on it on social media. Sell the team, Stu. Sell the team, sell the team, sell the team. How do you see this all playing out? I mean, I assume there will be a day in the future that he does sell the team, but we hear all this talk about cost overruns of the stadium and it being upwards of 150 to 200 million, somewhere around that range. How are they going to make up that funding gap, and how does that impact Stu Sternberg going forward?
I don't know. Honestly, I can only give you speculation. I obviously no insight into that. Major League Baseball could float him a loan, and they could pay that off. They could get a venture capital firm, might want to invest in the team. They could find local investors who may want to be investors. So they may suggest that you sell some minority stake in the team. They can't, and I say they, meaning Major League Baseball, unless Stu does something Donald Sterling-like, and I don't think that's going to happen. They can't take the team away from him, okay? Or they can't suggest for him to sell it. That's silly, and it's even silly to say it. I mean, you can say it. It's like, believe me, I lived in the land of Daniel Snyder here in the Washington, D.C. area. 2 weeks after he bought the team, they were saying sell the team. So no, owners are going to own that team until something makes them decide that they want to sell it. My best guess is, if they get the deal done, which we hope they do, is that investment into the gas plant area ups the value of the franchise to a point where if he wants to cash out, he'll cash out at a very favorable rate.
Makes sense.
So I think that's the way. I mean, you can't. It's going to be. It would be difficult in my mind to sell a franchise that you don't have a ballpark set up right yet. You don't really have any real prospect of what are we going to do here. If I'm talking about if they would walk away from this deal, it would be difficult. It would be even more difficult for the owners of Major League Baseball teams to, as I said before, what do we, we've got another problem child on our hands here. The Rays and the Athletics have been the problem children of Major League Baseball for decades. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why they want to get this thing settled. I do believe that there are going to be someday, whether it's, a year from now, 2 years from now, that the Nashville area will find an ownership group, and that they need an Eastern team, an Eastern city, and they need a Western city. They're not going to go to two Western cities.
Right.
And this silliness about, they can play in Nebraska for two. Yeah, sure. Let's see. Okay. Explain to me how that works. The Yankees fly after playing in Boston, they fly to Nebraska to play the Rays in Nebraska.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Come on. And frankly, it doesn't even make sense to go to Orlando. Because if you think about it, and I can tell you this from first-hand knowledge, whenever we had the NBA there, when the Magic moved in, I can assure you Disney was not jumping on board going, this is a great idea. When you go to Disney or you go to Universal, you go to stay on the campus, or at least that's what they prefer you to do. So going to a basketball game, okay, that's fine. Eventually you'll get to that. But having baseball in Orlando, that's just, no. It's not going to change the dynamic in any way, shape, or form.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and to get started with $200 in bonus bets. Where's that at? That's at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel. They are an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League.
So, the Tampa tried that. The Rays went over there and played some games at the Disney complex. And here's the thing that bothers me, guys, and you can maybe explain this to me. Last time I checked, Miami was still in Florida. For the better part of 18 years, they played baseball outside in a football stadium. And nobody batted an eye about how the schedule was done. All of a sudden, we have to have climate-controlled 72 degrees and no rain. What I realized it's about 310, 320 miles from Miami to Tampa on a good day. I don't get it personally. I sat through football games, soccer matches, little league games, in driving rainstorms. It rains in Florida.
My only thought with that is maybe we've gone softer over the years with the advent of the big screen, flat screen television, and high definition 4K, that you have to give us a reason to get up and get out of the house. And if I'm getting up and getting out of the house and spending X number of dollars, I want to be as comfortable as possible. And I don't want to sit in a rain delay, and I don't want to sit in 98 degree weather with the sunburn on my face. Just a theory.
I'm not saying that being uncomfortable is something I enjoy. I'm just saying that, this week, the Steelers and the Ravens will play a game in freezing temperatures. God knows what it's going to be like in Buffalo.
Honestly, what I don't understand is
Mhm.
they play in a blizzard and that you can't play. I 100% get where you're coming from. Now, I think what I would like to see
Mhm.
is a study of, let's say, just for not being a small sample size and just grabbing like last year, but like, can you grab the last 10 years of the Tampa Tarpons schedule and see how many games were rescheduled because of rain? And
Have you,
do we have a problem or do we not have a problem?
have you ever seen a game in Atlanta?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the time you get out of the ballpark, whether it's Turner Field in the old days or the old stadium or now Truist, okay, you don't have a shirt. It's soaked. You have to almost bring 3 shirts with you to get through the game.
Sure.
So it's not like we're the only place in the state of the world that has that problem. But I'll share this one real quick anecdote with you. Going into Nationals Park one day with FP Santangelo, who at the time was one of the Nationals color analysts. We're walking past a concession stand, and the two concession stands were across from each other. The one concession stand was selling Miller Lite beer, and the other concession stand was selling cupcakes. There was a longer line to the cupcake than there was to the beer. At which point, FP Santangelo said, "We have suddenly jumped totally away from baseball fans to becoming an entertainment business."
Yeah.
And that gets, Kevin, what you were talking about, saying, well, the flat screens and all that. 100%, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
But by the way, the cupcakes are very good.
Yeah, we
Good to know.
don't hate cupcakes in this podcast, but the point remains.
Yeah, the point remains. The point remains that the day of just going and having a hot dog and a adult beverage or a soda or whatever you want to get, those days are gone. You now have designer foods. You now have they'll bring it to you. It's like it is an entertainment value. I get that, but it also if you had to rough it for a couple of years to get what you wanted, is it that bad?
I think that's where most race fans are like, you know what? If we have to do that, we were more than happy to, as long as you keep our team in the area. Jim, I can confidently speak for Kevin here. We have had such a terrific time speaking to you, Jim. How can folks see your work, read your work, just watch your work? What can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, or X, I'm sorry, at JW Media DC. You can read work. I now have taken on the role of an editor for Rant Sports, and we're having fun there. You can read it there. And I also am a contributor to Forbes magazine on business of sports for Forbes. And so you can find me anywhere, any of those places. And when I go to a baseball game, I still eat a hot dog and have a Coke.
Last question for you. Will you be down here this season in the Tampa Bay area?
I don't know at this point in time, but I do know that if I am, I will be at the ballpark.
You will contact us, and Kevin
Oh
will
yeah,
buy
of course.
us daddy sodas for the three of us. Okay.
All right, fair enough. That's
we owe you a beer. And then finally, real quickly, so after all this conversation, that across episodes, it is of your opinion that the Rays are staying in Tampa Bay for generations to come, that they're not relocating or moving elsewhere, that one way or another, they will be in Tampa Bay for the next couple of decades at least.
All right. I'm not in the prediction game, but I will say this. I do believe that that they want to be there, that Major League Baseball wants them there. I think the fans want them there. And so, yeah, I believe that they're not going anywhere. And I do believe that one way or another, this deal will get done. Nothing in Major League Baseball or sports for that matter is ever easy. It's always ends up being messy for reasons that, who knows? It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So there's still a long way to go here, and I get that. But I do believe that that the league and ultimately the Rays want to be there, and they'll figure out a way. And I think that what the folks in St. Petersburg, with the city over there, the mayor, and what the Pinellas County has done is a good investment in a future of what sports is all about, which is a stadium that has all kinds of things around it to do that brings in people. And I think that and hope that 2 or 3 years from now that I might show up at the new ballpark.
That's right.
We'd be happy to see you.
It's been a treat.